Day. Speaking of which, let's just a little state of affairs as far as number one, the workers out there. How are we doing?
Well, it's sort of a mixed bag right now, Paul. As you know, it's tough across the board as far as finding employees to go to work, and obviously we're concerned about the unemployment insurance increase from the federal government, which our governor thankfully has decided that we don't want to participate any longer around mid-June. I think that's going to help tremendously.
So they'll get one more payment?
Yeah, it'll run through. I think it's June 13th. I'm not
June 13th.
Yeah, I think that's the cutoff date, and then after that, we go back to our regular state unemployment system, and I think that's going to spur some interest. And then, quite frankly, manufacturing, as you know, was always considered essential. We never shut down during the pandemic, and certain sectors are just going harder than they've ever gone before. So you've got, whether it's timber or furniture manufacturing, auto manufacturing, all of these things. There's two constraining factors right now, and one is labor and one is supply chains.
Is some of that supply chain caused by, I guess number one is going to be demand, but number two is going to be from no drivers? That's affecting some people.
Well, it is.
And the workers altogether, but I mean the drivers too.
It's multi-layered, and I will say that there are, the auto industry or any of the technology that requires chips.
Yeah.
And we've all heard about these chips, and what most people don't understand is these are in almost every consumer electronic product there is.
Why is that?
Because everything is connected these days.
No. Why is there a shortage?
Oh, well, that's another big problem. So as we came, obviously there was some shutdown effects in Asia mainly, is where these chips are manufactured. So there was kind of a bottleneck coming out of the worst parts of the pandemic. Well, then there was a surge in demand with autos and appliances and all these things. When people were stuck at home and they were remodeling, they were buying all these products. So there was a natural shortage there. Another factor that most people don't understand is this new cryptocurrency. There are massive amounts of computer technology involved in mining cryptocurrency, which again strains those same supply chains.
That's beyond me. I just don't understand. Number one, when you talk about what happened with China, and China said that they weren't going to take that, and then there's been some other, and then it crashes, and it's just up and down. How in the world can anybody, if you really have a lot of investments in there, sleep at night? You have no idea what's going to happen in the next day.
That is completely out of my area of expertise. Gosh. I'm with you, Paul. I don't quite understand.
It's just, if you have money, is that another headache that you want to go to? I understand people think they can make, and some people have made a lot of money, but that's today. Who knows what's happening tomorrow on that one. I was looking at the dashboard, the Mississippi Department of Employment dashboard. We have 58,561, 58,961 jobs open that are listed at the Mississippi Department of Employment Security.
Absolutely. And we've got companies that are offering signing bonuses. They are offering, obviously everybody has increased the pay for their positions, and they can't find them.
I wonder what this child care thing is. How's that going to play into it? Because, I mean, you're talking about if you've got a kid or if you've got 2 or 3 kids, that's some money coming in.
Absolutely.
And then if you start looking at what you don't have to – and I'll tell you another thing, too, is with gas prices, let's just say your job is 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 miles away. You got to factor that in.
Absolutely. And in a rural state like Mississippi, that is very common.
Oh, it's common.
I think the average commute distances is more than 20 miles.
So I'm thinking, okay, now I've got this coming in. I've got the stimulus money. I've got to understand where my tax, how that plays into this. And now I've got gas prices to figure in. Is it a better deal to stay home?
And that's what we're all fighting against. And I think as we continue to move out of this pandemic sort of mindset, I think a lot of that's going to be solved.
I don't know this, but is all of that money counted as income at the end of it? Is?
Yeah, so that's actually one problem that we addressed during the session is that most people don't understand that unemployment benefits are taxable income.
If not, you would be showing a heck of a loss, and if we expanded Medicaid, you'd probably be able to get on Medicaid from a new salary from not counting any of that.
That's right.
And then we would go from 200,000 to 300,000 people to maybe 500,000 people being put on the expanded Medicaid.
That's right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Does have a lot of repercussions.
It does.
So what are, beside the beside the bonuses, and I'm not sure how widespread that is, what else are industries doing?
Well, the biggest thing that we're doing as a state and individual companies and industries is really looking at that pipeline of talent, because we need as a state to invest in younger people. Now, obviously, that's going to take some time to actually get to a worker, but starting in high school, we need to be training for the skills that are in demand. And these aren't your 20, 30, 40 years ago kind of vo-tech jobs. These are high-tech, high-demand, high-paying jobs that just need that additional training that has been lacking over the last few years.
I know there was an article on one of the liberal voices talking about people leaving the state of Mississippi. They've always been leaving. And the funny thing about that is half the people that work where this place was are from out of state, that they left their home state to work here, or vice versa. So anyway, I mean, it was kind of hypocritical. But that being said, is when you start looking at this, people always move. They look for different jobs. But I would think now with the Amazons, the Googles, the industry like at Ingalls, or the aeronautics industry we have, and so many other, automobile industry, the tire manufacturers, that you have more of a reason to stay here than ever before if you're trained.
Well, and that's it's all about economic opportunities. Whenever we talk about this topic of brain drain or retaining our talent, all of those things, it's all about opportunities. And you see that in pockets around the state where some areas have done extremely well at retaining that talent and attracting outside talent, but it's not uniform across the state. And I think that's what you're seeing in some of those census numbers is we have lost some population, and we do need to address that. That's a serious issue for our long-term sustainability.
How do we do that?
There's a lot of answers to that question.
I got to tell you something else, and it's one of those things that's damn if you do, damn if you don't. But public image is ingrained on young people from day one. In everything they hear, and I guess I'm a little bit responsible for this, because a few moments ago I was reading the unhealthiest places in the nation, and I read Mississippi as number one. They get this information. They see all of this stuff, more now than ever before. Where we would get 10,000 hits a day on our brain back in the old days, they get 10 million now. So they're kind of inculcated, they're kind of indoctrinated over a period. By the time they get out of school, certainly if they've got a good education and there are 4 or 5 jobs, you're going to take one somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And that perception for a lot of people, especially young people that you're talking about that hear it over and over, that is the reality, and we do need to address that. And we've taken some steps. I mean, look, the flag decision last year was great.
A lot of it is beyond our control.
That's right.
When it shows up on a Saturday Night Live skit or something, it's beyond our control. There's not too much we can do about that. One of the things I think is to maybe go back, and I know we do, is focus on our assets, such as income, cost of living, and things such as that. But we'll talk more about it with John McKay. Back to our interview with John McKay, President and CEO of Mississippi Manufacturers Association. There is a lot of hope based on this infrastructure, and that's going to play in as far as the manufacturers are concerned in our state.
Absolutely. We have a ton of manufacturers in our state that are involved in road and bridge construction type manufacturing, and if we can get the federal plan, whatever that might look like, zeroed in on existing roads and bridges, that's our main push. And then obviously we've been having this conversation at the state level. Remember in 2018 there was a special session that really pumped a lot of money into our local roads and bridge system, which is fantastic.
It was so anemic, and slowly but surely, people don't see this on a day-to-day basis because it's happening in some of the local communities. But you're talking about sports betting, you're talking about the lottery, you're talking about internet
sales tax.
Yep. All of these things were to fuel that roads and bridges, and they're doing it slowly but surely.
Absolutely, and it was almost all of that money was geared toward that local sector. So it's the cities and counties that honestly don't have the revenue streams to do these big projects, and this helped tremendously.
Last we heard, and I think the speaker was on with me telling, I think he said, was almost close to $900 million over estimates from last year as far as our state revenue.
I think that's right.
About $900 million.
Pretty incredible.
It is absolutely incredible. Plus, I think everybody underestimated lottery. I mean, because education's got to get quite a bit of money now from the overflow of that $80 million.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
When it originally was debated, the idea that we would hit $80 million to just go to roads and bridges was, most people thought that was impossible.
Some of the people in education were saying, I said, and some of the advocates were saying, why would you set that thing up to $80 million? We'll never get any money from this thing. Mm-hmm. So that has been a tremendous surprise. The infrastructure bill is working its way through. If you've heard on Fox News, if you're keeping up with this one, the Republicans have offered something new. They're trying to take some of the fluff out. And some of the stuff, there are literally hundreds of billions of dollars in the bill that the Democrats have for foreign money to send overseas.
And what we need to do, Paul, is we need to concentrate on true infrastructure. We need water, sewer, roads, bridges, and those are the core functions of infrastructure spending. And what we need to do is not look at raising corporate tax rates at the federal level to pay for these things. We need to do what some of the folks in Washington are talking about and look at existing revenue streams, possibly look at user fees. But the people who use the system are willing to pay for it, and that's what we need to do.
Well, AOC was talking about it also. She was redefining what an infrastructure is, and it would be a Saturday Night Live skit if it were not so if it were not so serious. It would be funny.
Well, she's great at redefining a whole host.
She was redefining that. Now, I can see where broadband would be infrastructure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and that is a key. We are hearing that more and more from our members, especially in the rural parts of the state, and my hat's off to the legislature for being forward-thinking and looking at some of this federal stimulus money that's given to states and locals to pay for that critical infrastructure.
One of the things that we've got to come together on is this personal income tax. I know you guys at the Mississippi Manufacturers Association were not really happy with the personal income tax. We just had a conversation, you and I, talking about we need to keep more people in the state of Mississippi. We know Texas is gaining. We know some of the other states, Florida, Tennessee, Carolina, South Carolina. Is it South or North Carolina? It's South Carolina, I believe. It may be both of them as far as income tax are concerned. But one way or the other, we're the only state we're becoming isolated in the South as the one with a personal income tax. And don't you think ultimately that would be an attraction to keep some people home or bring people in?
Well, I certainly, overall tax policy and tax structures definitely drive economic growth and development, which again is number one in my book for keeping, retaining, and growing our workforce and our population. And my hat's off to the speaker and his leadership team for bringing this issue and bringing a plan and putting it out there. It's very complicated when you talk about tax policy, so we just need to be very judicious in looking at all the moving parts.
But all the moving parts, when it happens to be something that the manufacturers have to take up, then everybody's protective of their turf.
Sure.
The problem I'm having on this one is you don't want it all to go back to the people who don't have lobbyists. That's the individual people. Taxpayers.
That's right.
And for instance, the inventory tax, didn't the industry do a pretty good job, and that's been beneficial to them?
It has been, and that's a great point. But what we did with the inventory tax is every business that pays the inventory tax, 10 years ago, they still pay it today, and then they get a credit at the state level. So there's about $150 million every year of inventory taxes, and only about $20 million in credits given every year. So that's one thing. Manufacturers pay about 20 different state, local, and federal taxes. So we are a very tax-heavy sector. Yeah. But, we can't pass our costs along to an end consumer. We are usually the first step in the chain. So every cost increase for us is escalated in an increased cost on the product. And
if it gets too high, then you got to cut back.
Competition is a problem.
And all of that is a bad circle. Yeah. Do you think there's a way to come together on this?
I absolutely do. And I think,
you guys, do you have a seat at the table on this?
Well, we're waiting to. I know that the Lieutenant Governor has announced plans to have some hearings over the, summer and fall, and we certainly look forward to working with them.
Have you been invited to have a seat at the table?
The last conversations I've had with that team, they have not set any dates, but they did mention that they were interested in hearing from us.
So as far as the personal income tax right now, it's just one of those things that we'll have to see exactly what happens.
That's right. Yes.
I hate to bring up medical marijuana, but it's a big deal, and it's something that manufacturers are going to have to take a look at. It affects every agency, every business in our state. Your thoughts now that we're past the initiative process?
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, the Supreme Court decision is going to throw everything at the state capitol up in the air next session, and we're going to have to be in those conversations. I'll say for manufacturers, one of the biggest considerations is we want to make sure that safety is maintained at our facilities. So having the ability to maintain drug testing policies and being able to discipline employees for unsafe practices, all those things need to be maintained.
That's something that we have a problem with now because a lot of businesses who are short of employees. Some of the reason for that shortage has to do with they can't pass the drug test.
That's absolutely right. And it's a problem in our state, and it's not unique to Mississippi.
Yeah, how will that change if we have medical marijuana?
It will not change.
It won't change?
Yeah, no, it will
not. It may be exacerbated.
It very well could be, and we don't want to see that.
They want more information. Is there a website to go to the Mississippi Manufacturers Association?
It's www.mma-web.org.
You got it.